She the queen, yeah, that's Queen Esquire. Legal trouble, she getting you out the fire. Another game, she solving another case. Cause she litigate with dignity and grace. She the queen, yeah, that's Queen Esquire. Legal trouble, she getting you out the fire. Another day, she solving another case. Cause she litigate with dignity and grace.
Hello, litigators and opinionators. Court is now in session. How are you guys doing? I hope you are doing well. I was just live, but I am back again to talk about a case that we have been covering for the past 2 months. Now, this case is about a tragedy that occurred that's been going on for 2 years. An ongoing YouTube beef in these social media streets. People think that, social media is this imaginary place where you can say whatever you want and there are no consequences. Well, Finny the Legend, as sad as it is, that's the man on the screen with his beautiful, lovely wife here, Bubbly. They became acquainted with a narcissist, egotistical man on YouTube that had a lot of beef in these streets because of his arrogance. This man here on the screen is Manny Ruiz. Now, people might be asking, you are taking the side of the victim, you're biased. No, I'm not necessarily taking the side of the victims. I do feel that both parties on both sides have a part to play in this tragedy. I feel that Finny the Legend was unforgiving, and he became very egotistical. He became very driven upon the social media attention that he received that he was not necessarily used to. You see, Finny the Legend, he did not have a really big YouTube when he started out before he started talking about Manny. In fact, he only had a few, like maybe I would say less than 100 followers before he started talking about Manny. And he focused a lot on sports before he started talking about Manny. But when he got into this beef 2023 and he started getting all this social media attention from people who had the same common hatred for Manny, that is when he started to become obsessed with the fame. And it's as sad as it is, a lot of these older individuals who aren't so familiar with social media attention, and even in the newer generation, a lot of people are social media driven, and the attention that they get online can sometimes get to their head, and it can become a very toxic place. So basically, Finny the Legend took this small man here who's about 5 feet tall like he was a joke, okay? And terrorized this man online, But a lot of people didn't like Manny because Manny had attitude. Manny was a hot mess. He was arrogant. He was brash. He thought he owned the Las Vegas streets, and because he felt he was the founder of this whole Las Vegas Strip YouTube social media. And so he felt like if you come to his town that you have to basically pay your dues to do YouTube there, or else you can't share the spotlight with him. Okay. This man was arrogant and thought he was the schnitz. Okay. So anyways, we've been talking about this story. I covered the details of this story. If you want to know more about the backstory, then look at my different videos. I've covered this. I really broke it down, y'all, and went into every details. But I'm just here to talk about the updates tonight. So one of the updates that we have going on is the prosecutor has made the final decision. They are going to pursue the death penalty. And as I've been discussing, they have not pursued the death penalty since 2006. So even though Nevada has the death penalty, they have not been pursuing it for decades. And this was the case. They wanted to pursue it because they want to make an example out of this man. They feel like he is one of the reasons why now a lot of people do not want to come to Las Vegas. They're scared. They feel like this place isn't safe. And so they want to prove to society that this place called the Las Vegas Strip is a safe place where people should visit. So on August 1st, the prosecutor made that decision that they are going to pursue the death penalty. Now, this raises the stakes for Manuel because Manuel, this arrogant, cocky man from Salinas, didn't really assess his consequences and he didn't care. He thought, oh, I'm just going to go to jail and it is what it is. But I don't think he put two and two together that his life could be at stake. Do I think this case will ultimately get the death penalty? I don't really think so, y'all, because it depends on the jury. The jury is the one that has to make the final decision. It depends if this case even goes to trial. Now, yesterday, this man set up in court, y'all, and he pled not guilty. The audacity of this man. I'm telling you, he believes everything is a Hollywood production. He is going to try to convince his public defender, because y'all, he don't have any money to get a private attorney. He's going to try to convince his public defender to take this case to trial. And that public defender going to sit him down and tell him, sir, you need to be trying to preserve your life at this point. You need to take a plea. I think what will ultimately happen is he's probably going to take a plea once he determines that there's no other alternative, once they flesh out all the evidence they have against this man. Because at this point, they've only shown him the video that they had online, but they got several terabytes. I think it's 4 terabytes of evidence against this man. And I think once the defense attorney starts delving into the evidence and starts sharing that evidence with Manuel, I think he's going to start seeing the writing on the wall. It's not going to be anytime soon. Right now, he's arrogant and cocky and unapologetic. He thinks he's going to beat the case right now. You can't tell him anything. He thinks he's smarter than the judicial system. He's smarter than everybody else. So at this point in time, it's too early. But I'm telling you, as this case gets later down the line, once it's like next year, because the case was set for trial next August, which is August 2026. So we're going to be in for a long ride for this case, as I told you from the beginning. These cases usually don't go to trial until like at the earliest a year later. And that's if we're lucky. They might come next year, August, and they might want to continue it out another year and another year. So I told you the defense attorney strategy is to drag this out as long as they can. Let's get into the article though, y'all. So this article was from August 1st. They said that the death penalty was sought for the man charged with the live stream Las Vegas murders. Let's see if this video plays anything.
Thunder, feel the thunder. It's the energy all around you. Lightning and the thunder.
The man accused of shooting and killing 2 people on the Las Vegas Strip could face the death penalty. Clark County District Attorney's Office filing a notice of intent to seek the death penalty against this man, Manny Ruiz. The whole incident caught on live stream in June when Ruiz allegedly shot Rodney and Tanisha Finley over an online beef that spanned months. Prosecutors say by opening fire in a crowded area right there in front of the Bellagio fountains, he knowingly created a great risk of death to several people. Ruiz has claimed self-defense in the case. His next hearing is set for Monday.
Okay, so there you have it. That was last week. Let's see what they said here. They already talked about this. They basically sent this case to a death penalty review committee. So the prosecutor informed District Court Judge Tiara Jones last month that Ruiz's case was heading to a death review committee. What that committee will do is look at to see whether this case is viable for a death penalty charge. So it's a little different than certain states, but in Nevada, they have a death review committee that they have to go through the process of presenting the evidence. And that review committee has to determine whether the case rises to the level of a potential death penalty case. It looks like they have determined that. And they allege that that's the ongoing feud. This is all redundant stuff. We already know it's an ongoing feud that stemmed back 2 years ago. He tries to maintain his innocence. During the appearance in court last month, he looked at the reporters and whispered, "I'm innocent." Boy, bye. He is still being held without bail. And they had an arraignment hearing that was scheduled for August 4th. That was just yesterday. So let's go to that article, because just yesterday he was arraigned on the two to murder charges. He's now being charged with first degree because they started out with like just a open murder charge. That was their first charge. But they have since elevated that case from a open charge of murder to now first degree. So they're not playing with this man. And he needs to get some wake up call right now and humble himself, because he's in for a fate of death if he doesn't get his act straight and humble himself. But right now he's not ready to. So anyways, this was what happened yesterday. You see this little clown up in here. Man charged with live streamed Las Vegas Strip murders pleads not guilty. So yesterday he was in court. This is him in court yesterday. He walks out of a courtroom with his attorney after the hearing on Monday, which was yesterday. This is him here. He look a little bit skinnier. I don't know if it's just me. Finally, we get to see this man's face, y'all, because we have been waiting to see this man's face for God knows how long. Let's see what else we got here. Here's him talking to one of his attorneys here. I hope they let him know, sir, you're going to be losing your life if you don't reassess what you're doing here. But they haven't had a chance to look at the evidence. So this is him being arraigned. Now, at this hearing, he had the audacity to say not guilty. Now, a lot of people don't understand that as laypersons. You're like, why did they plead not guilty when there's all this evidence? Number one, this is the beginning process of any criminal charge. Every defendant normally will plead not guilty at the beginning. That's just a standard plea that they usually enter so that it allows time for their attorney to assess all of the discovery. Because in this case, there's 4 terabytes of evidence. So the defense attorney needs a long time to go through the evidence. What they will do is they will get an investigator to go out and find any contradicting evidence that can show their client is innocent or raise some form of doubt in the case. And after they have fully assessed the case, this can take several months to several years to get the full assessment done, right? And they're having their investigator go out, as I was mentioning to you. And once they have fully alleged this case, then they'll also, during this process, they'll have several hearings that go on. There's usually bail hearings to reassess the amount of bail. They will have motions to suppress. They will have evidentiary hearings. There's all these hearings that go on before the trial actually happens. And once the judge has made rulings in these hearings and all of the evidence has been assessed, and if after assessing all the evidence and the court rules on certain matters, and maybe it's not in the favor of their client, and they fully assess the case and they realize, okay, looking at all this case, they talk to the client and they're like, look, we didn't went through all these hearings. It looks like the court has ruled against you. So all this evidence is about to come in. And here's all the evidence that they have. And more than likely, based on all this evidence, if you proceed to trial, you have a strong chance of being convicted. And you're facing the death penalty. So you are going to face a risk of a jury issuing a death penalty towards you and you lose your life. So then they'll tell the client that, like, look, after looking at all this evidence that they have against you, you should look at trying to get a plea deal to at least preserve your life at this point. Because at least you'll have the chance you won't get a chance of parole, but at least you'll have a chance of living the rest of your life out. It may be in rough conditions, but you still preserve your life. That's usually kind of what goes on in these criminal trials and criminal processes. So we got a long ways to go before Mr. Manny humbles himself. Right now, he's going to be arrogant until the very bitter end. But I think what's ultimately going to happen down the line is he's going to see the writing on the wall. And this is not going to be for a while, guys. It'll be probably several years. I don't know how long it's going to take for them to act. They continue the trial till next year, but we'll see if next year actually the trial goes. I don't really have much hope. It's probably going to get continued out several years until he finally humbles himself. But we'll see. We'll see. This case is more simple than it looks. There's just 4 terabytes of evidence that they got to sift through. But anyways, let's read this article. The man charged with killing a couple while on a live stream on the Las Vegas Strip pled not guilty Monday. Yesterday, he pled not guilty. He was arraigned. And at the arraignment, the judge will read out the charges of what the person is facing. So this is the time where they are given a summary of what the charges they're facing, what are the maximum minimal penalties, And then they ask the defendant, what will they plead? And like I said, it is the normal procedure for every defendant, unless all the evidence is there. And that's usually like in more minor cases, like infractions and misdemeanors. Those cases usually sometimes will plea out at the arraignment. But when they're facing more serious charges like murder, I'm going to let you know, they're going to plead not guilty. So don't get alarmed. A lot of people are like, oh my God, the audacity of them to plead not guilty when they're on camera. That is just the normal procedure because it has to allow for the process to make its way through the judicial process of the defense attorney assessing all the evidence, having their investigators go out to see if they can formulate a defense on the behalf of the client. So don't get alarmed that he pled not guilty. Even if this guy is claiming he's innocent, the guy has a long way. I don't know how he's going to prove he's innocent. Anyway, Manny Ruiz entered a plea on 2 counts of murder with a deadly weapon just days after prosecution notified the court that they would seek the death penalty. So they have already said they're going to seek the death penalty case. But again, they are going to have 2 trials. The first trial is going to be the evidentiary trial. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed the crime, which is going to be easy to prove. Then there's going to be a whole second trial, guys. The second trial is going to be on what sentence he should get. That's going to be the death penalty trial. And they're going to present all this evidence to the jury. They're going to present aggravating factors for why the jury should fine for a death penalty. And then the defense attorney is going to put on evidence to show why their client, is a value to society and why they should preserve his life and try to establish mitigating factors. So there's going to be 2 trials. If this case ultimately goes to trial, I don't think it's going to go. Anyway, but here we go. Judge Tierra Jones scheduled trial to begin August next year. So we got a long ways with this, guys. Manuel, the YouTuber now charged with a double murder, pleads not guilty. His trial is set for August 2026. This is him in court yesterday. He seems to have gotten a little bit thinner. I don't know. You guys let me know if he changed weight or he's just the same. Authorities allege Ruiz, who goes by Sin City Manny on social media, had an ongoing feud with Rodney Finley, 44, who went by Finny the Legend. Ruiz approached Finny and his wife, Tanisha Finley, while they were streaming on YouTube near the Bellagio fountains on June 8th and shot them multiple times, according to police and prosecutors. Detectives wrote in their arrest report that Ruiz said he acted in self-defense. He argued that he saw Rodney Finley reach toward his waistband as if he were going for a gun. The detectives wrote the YouTube video clearly showed Manny advancing towards Finley while shooting, and officers did not find any weapons near the Finleys. And we already know what this was about, the 2-year beef going on. Manny and his delusional mind felt like he had his dignity and his pride was continually being tarnished by Finny, who was growing in popularity online by exposing him and holding him accountable. And his narcissistic mind and irrationality that he was coping with made him believe that he needed to take matters into his own hands and he was willing to face the consequences, but he didn't look too far past the consequences of death himself. He didn't look at that part of it. So guys, there's a lot going on in this case. It's basically elevated. It is officially a death penalty case, y'all. So, oh my gosh, let me know what you think about the updates. I am not surprised, but at the same time, I don't really have much hope that they're going to actually impose a death penalty. Like I said, they haven't imposed a death penalty since 2006. This is I don't know if it's like one of those states that are more so in the middle. They switch. They're a state that could be flipped. I think they're not like a blue or red state, right? Let me know what you guys think. But they're not Democrat or Republican. They're just kind of like states that can be flipped either way. Like sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're red. It's just like it depends on what's going on, current events. But I don't know. Even though they're saying it's a death penalty, I don't know if it's going to actually be imposed. I think what's going to happen is Sin City Manny's his attorney's going to eventually tell him down the line, dude, you need a plea. And we need to try to talk to the prosecutor to take the death penalty off the table if you're willing to plead. this case out. And ultimately, I think that's probably what the prosecutor is going to go with. They're probably going to have him plead. Let me know what you think. Do you think he's going to get the death penalty? Do you think the jury will actually impose a death penalty in Nevada? I don't know at all. Okay, so a good question. Wham says, how many appeals would he get? It would depend on the evidence, the defense that he has, the appealable matters that he brings. Like if he's going to raise any insufficiency of representation of his attorney, any of the evidence that may have gone in that shouldn't have come in, that was appealable, and that the defense attorney preserved. It's really going to depend on that. But he can get a lot of appeals, Whams. The appeals can go on for decades before they finally put a foot down and say, okay, no more appeals at this point. After that, when he cannot appeal all the matters he thinks he's going to appeal, and again, the defense attorney will object to certain things to preserve those on the record for appeals, but it has to go through various levels of the judicial process. So that can take years to get through before he's actually going to see the death penalty. If he even gets to the death penalty, y'all, I don't even know if he's going to get there, because this state doesn't look like it's a state that would impose it. I don't know how the jurors over there are in Nevada, if they're like the soft nature type people, tree huggers, lovers, empathetic people. They may just eventually say, hey, yeah, he did what he did. It was horrible. Let's give him the life in prison without the possibility of parole. That's what I think what he's going to get. But this should be a wake-up call to him. He's facing the death penalty. That's pretty serious. I don't think he really put all the consequences together to think he was going to get the death penalty in Nevada. Ellen says, I keep following these cases because I will never understand this kind of petty behavior. Right, Ellen, girl. These people out here don't have rationality, especially social media. Ellen said, with what you just said, you're going to like my new songs. Oh, I need to hear your songs, Ellen, girl. Let me know how I can hear it. Ellen says, I don't know that much about this, but I'm here to vibe. Okay, Ellen, yeah, girl, you need to watch my various videos on this case. This case runs deep and it is very interesting. It's like a case that a lot of people are obsessed with because not a lot of people didn't realize that YouTube can lead to people getting murdered in real life. People just be out here beefing online, not really thinking about the consequences. Hi, Tavia. Tavia says, I know Manny is rethinking this over and over. Too late now. Girl, you know what? I want to think that about this man. I think he's arrogant right now. Okay, here's a couple things with going on with Mr. Manny. Now, first, let's talk about the culture that goes on in jail. You know, a lot of times when a person commits a crime, everybody in jail, the inmates in there, are already getting word of what this person did. So the crime that Manny did of murdering these people are type of crimes that inmates in jail, they respect. See, like in the jail culture, if you unalive somebody because you felt disrespected, then the inmates, they will honor you for that. They will respect you for that. So he's not going to face any danger in jail because of the crime he committed. He's going to get more respect because of that. Number one. Number two, and also because it doesn't involve him murdering children or molesting children, those type of crimes. Now, if he did any type of crimes like that, the other inmates in there would be, going after him. He would have to be in protective custody. But he's now probably getting a lot of respect in jail because when they talk to him, they're going to be like, wait, hey, why'd you murder those people? He said, well, they were disrespecting me. Okay, well, that's mad respect. I respect you for that, because in jail, that's what they look at. Number one, they don't have empathy in jail. They don't care about somebody getting unalive. What they care about is if it's a child, sometimes if it's a woman, but in this case, because he's talking about the fact that they disrespected him and he was preserving the representation of his family and the dignity of his family, he's going to get respected in jail for that. Number two, this man is in a gang. So he's going to join, he's going to have a lot of protection in jail, especially in the Hispanic community in the jail. He's going to be respected by the Hispanic gang members in the jail. So no one's going to mess with Manny in jail. He's not going to have to worry about that culture in jail, because I know a lot of people are wondering, well, is he going to get threats in jail? Not really. No, I mean, even if and other people might argue, well, what if the black people in jail want to retaliate against him because he murdered 2 black individuals? Like I said, they're not going to be able to do anything about that, because he's going to have a lot of respect, and he's going to be affiliated with the Hispanics that are gang members in that jail who will protect him. So he's going to be fine in jail. That's not the problem he's facing right now. What Manny needs to really look at is the fact that the death penalty is now on the table. That is what we're dealing with. So it's a whole different ballgame. He thought, oh, I'm going to kill these people. I'm just going to be in jail and I'll do my time, whatever. That's how Manny thought about this. He didn't think about the possibility of losing his own life when he unalived these people. So that, I think, is going to be his wake-up call right now. But as it stands right now, he's arrogant. He thinks, oh, I'm innocent. I have a defense. I'm going to get away with this. And like Ellen says, I mean, this behavior is so dumb that it deserves death penalty, but at the same time, doesn't deserve the effort. Exactly. Bingo, what Ellen is saying. With as it relates to the death penalty, and I'm pretty sure you guys have seen this, if the death penalty is imposed on this man, there's going to be decades of him litigating the appeal after appeal after appeal. Then he's going to go to the governor of Nevada and see if the governor of Nevada will pardon him and take the death. It's just going to be drawn out. So what's going to happen is the victims involved, the children of Finney, they're going to have to go through decades of this. So I feel like the case should be resolved like it was resolved in the Brian Kohlberger case. As you guys have been seeing, we've been covering that one. In the Brian Kohlberger case, he was facing the death penalty as well. And for many years, as I told you, what normally happens in these criminal matters is the defense attorney will litigate this case and drag it out for years. They'll have all these hearings, and when they lose and when they realize the evidence is piling up against the client, and there is a strong probability that this client will get convicted and now be subject to the death penalty, they will sit the client down and have a humbling moment with the client. And they'll tell the client, look, here's all the evidence stacked against you. We have exhausted every pretrial hearing that we could have, and the court has ruled against you. So more than likely, if you go to trial, you're going to get convicted. And then you're going to now have to face a second trial where the jury can assess whether they want to impose the death penalty. And then they're going to ask the client, do you want to preserve your life? This is what you need to do at this point. You would rather just spend time in life in jail and you're still alive and there's some form of hope for change for you. But if you go forward with this trial, there's not going to be any hope left if they impose the death penalty. Because most times when they impose that death penalty, it doesn't matter how many appeals you go through, and it doesn't matter how many pleas you make to that governor, they're going to ignore most of the time, and you're going to end up, unalived. So at that moment, that's when I really think, I feel like the best thing for the victims would be that the prosecutor ultimately down the line, again, this is going to be years dragging this case on, like all these cases get dragged on. But I think the ultimate best decision in this case will be that the prosecutor offers a life sentence, 2 life sentences consecutive with no possibility of parole and no opportunity to appeal. That would give finalization to this case, like what happened in the Brian Kohlberger case. And I understand that some of the victims, some of the parents were upset with that resolution because they wanted the case to go to trial. But I think after all the smoke and mirrors go away and they sit down and they assess it, they're going to be grateful because they don't have to worry about suffering. These victims have to suffer even after the trial because they got to keep going to hearing after hearing, appeal after appeal. And it can be decades of suffering and no finalization. But I think they really just need to put this guy away for life and let him just throw away the key. That's what I think. But y'all let me know what you guys think. That is the updates right now. He's basically facing the death penalty. This case is going to go cold at this point. people are going to try to drag it out to get clicks and views. But at this point, as it stands, another update I have to tell you. Miss Julia, the wife, it looks like the investigators have determined that they are not going to be pursuing any criminal charges against the wife. I know a lot of us, even myself, feel like she knew. The problem is, in the judicial system, they have to be able to have the evidence to prove that. And it doesn't appear as though the prosecutor or the criminal investigators were able to prove it. They probably searched all of her phone records, interviewed witnesses, and they weren't able to get the evidence. I think what they're going to do, instead of imposing charges against her, they're going to give her immunity, because they really don't have an interest in charging this woman. I think the interest weighs more in favor of using her as a witness against her husband. I think that's what's going to happen, because what they really want and who they really want is they want Manny, because Manny was the one that unalived the victims. So that's who they really want, in contrast to Juliana. They don't really care too much about Julie. I keep calling her all these names. I call her Juliana, Juliet, Julie. Sorry, y'all. I'll just be slaughtering that woman's name. Anyway, they don't really have an interest in getting Julie because she's not the murderer. He is. So allegedly, let's keep with allegedly, because he hasn't been convicted yet, blah, blah. Anyways, but the prosecutor is going to say, since we don't have the evidence anyway, we can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. We're going to tell her we're going to give her immunity as long as she is willing to testify against her husband. So I think what's going to end up happening in this trial, guys, is Julie is going to end up being a witness against her husband. They're going to call her as a witness, and it's going to be an incentive for her to testify against him so that she doesn't get charged ultimately herself. That's what I think what's going to happen. But basically, I wanted to break the news to you now. Y'all can close the door to the opportunity of her getting charged. She's not getting charged. Manny is getting charged. Manny is facing the death penalty. And in my opinion, he'll probably likely plead to a life sentence without the possibility of parole later down the line. This is going to take many years. They said the trial will be next year, y'all, but to be honest, I don't know. We'll see. We'll play it by ear, but I don't see that happening. I see it dragging on for a few years until finally this guy will say, hey, I want to enter a plea. And the case will go cold from there. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about that. And we shall revisit. Now, this case is really interesting me, so I might look more deep into it and see if there's any other stuff about it. But if I don't find anything, guys, and y'all find something, let me know. Because I don't like to just milk cases out for clicks and views. I like to bring updates if there's an actual good update that I can give you some quality information. But I'm noticing a lot of people are just milking this case just to get a view and a click. And there's really no updates at this point. They're just basically revisiting the same stuff over and over again. All right. I love you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe.